Sourabh has over 20 years has been building high-performing teams and award-winning products of the world's largest brands, including market programs at Cisco that were nominated for 2 Emmy Awards. And Sourabh is the chief marketing strategist at Demand Gen Studios, where his team produces growth marketing services for small and mid-sized B2B companies. Has a lot of other adventures and a lot of other amazing things that he's been doing. But at this point in time, we're going to turn the time over to him. He's going to be speaking about demand gen strategy to engage with your ICP or your ideal client prospect. So, Sourabh, I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Sterling. I appreciate it. And I'm going to see if I can catch us up. I know we're 6 minutes behind, so let's see if I can do this in 24 minutes, including some Q&A. I'm going to go straight into it because Sterling covered it. You don't really need to know anything else about me. I'm loud, I'm proud, and I'm brown. It's really that simple. So I'm going to move over here and share my, there we go. That'll let me share. There we go. So specifically around your ICP or your ideal customer profile, what I'm going to focus on is something that most of the brands we're working on right now are very focused on and having a lot of trouble with, which is getting your dormant leads back into the funnel. And you might have thousands of contacts or prospects. Some people have 10, some have hundreds of thousands of perfectly good contacts in their database that for whatever reason have gone cold. Today, we're going to talk about bringing them back to life, okay? And what you can do. Now, as Sterling mentioned, these are all brands that me or my team manage for Demand Gen. We're going to in particular focus on this brand, Lead to Pipeline. And why is because Lead to Pipeline, the company, actually manages Demand Gen programs for these brands, these brands, these brands. You get the point. They work with the world's largest and fastest growing tech companies. So I thought, hey, why don't we take the ideas and what's working for the market leaders and let's bring it to you in a way that you can actually use this to get thousands of those dormant leads back into your funnel, okay? So this is a low-cost strategy that you can repeat and you can also adapt to whatever your company's and your product needs are. Now, the way my session works for the next 18 minutes or so, I'm going to be focusing in each of the strategies or tactics that I'm going to outline for you based on what these other brands have done very successfully. I'm going to use a motto that I've really used with my children repeatedly, which is you can have what you want or you can have it now. You can't have both. And if you're the kind of person who's like, no, I got to have both, then I'm sorry, I'm just going to call it out over there on the right side. You're one of those people that's using a strategy that just won't work. You're a gonzo, okay? And my key takeaway that you get by the end of the session is don't be a gonzo. If you have to have an immediate result, then you're going to get ice cream. You may not like the flavor, but it's immediately available and it melts. What you really want to do, and we'll cover this in each of the strategies, is you want to get cake. And cake takes time, takes strategy, takes the right ingredients, and it takes experience. But that's what you ultimately want. In our case, that's better leads, right? Ice cream is more leads. And like we said, just don't be a gonzo, okay? So the first one we're going to cover here is how you're categorizing your ICP, your ideal customer profiles to begin with. Most of us are very familiar with the data over there on the right? Job titles, duration, their company size, the industry they're in. And then those that are more geared towards revenue marketing have learned, working with their sales colleagues, to focus on what are the signs publicly that I can determine that a company or a group or a product is actually growing or is actually in need of our service and would be open to this. And there's a lot of indicators. Are they hiring? Are they sponsoring events, which is marketing spend? What is their annual report if they're a public company? There's a lot of ways to get this information. What I want to highlight is most of us right now are doing something really wrong. We're being gonzos in that we're looking at who has money, right, amongst our dormant thousands of contacts here. And that's a wrong approach. Because until you have credibility and you've identified the need and the urgency with which you're solving it, it doesn't matter how much money they have. It's really kind of irrelevant. The second thing you want to do as to what you could do as far as getting leads now and reviving these perfect profile leads, the ice cream, so to speak, is to focus on folks who have an urgency. There's a timing. they're showing activity that would indicate they're in consideration mode. But the real winner in getting old leads warm again and getting them converted through to actual pipeline and sales is to really hunker down on need. Which of the prospects, which of the teams, which of the companies, right, are demonstrating the pain points or the signs of the pain points that your solution was made for? Focusing all of your energy there is the first thing I'm going to highlight, okay? The second thing comes down to content creation. And you just saw a great session on ChatGPT. But there's actually people who are better at creating content for your demand gen than Gonzo over here, than the automated sort of robot voice of ChatGPT. And those folks, right, where's the ice cream? Before we get to the cake, I want to call out, if you're co-creating content with your partners and your customers, you're already getting faster results than if you create content all by yourself. That might sound counterintuitive, but trust me, we do this for hundreds of pieces of content, right, a year. And that's because when you're co-creating content with people who are in market that use your solutions, whose job depends on it, they have a very high level of certainty, much, much higher than you will have internally on your marketing team or even with agencies you work who are hypothetically addressing the issue. So where's the cake? The cake is actually working with customers and the warmest prospects to co-create content like webinars, like surveys, interactive content where they're talking about, right, and bringing to life their pain points. Your customers can tell you why they didn't stay in the status quo. And that voice, that messaging is really important, as you'll see on the next point. They can also talk about candidly how they're growing the adoption of your solution, giving sort of a glimpse to the future. Third thing we'll cover here pretty quickly is when you get to the point where you are co-creating content and you're selecting the voices of the customers and the segments in which to create that content to revive these leads, right, to reanimate them, that have just kind of been sitting there, to re-engage them, you don't want to focus on Arnold over here, on Mr. Universe. No, that's the Gonzo. Okay, this is someone who spent 15 plus years, right, focusing on fitness and his physique. And if it's not attainable, what you're demonstrating as the benefit to your solution or the whole point that your campaign drives towards, what they'll achieve as a prospect, if it's not attainable, it's not truly attractive. It's just too far removed from where I am to see myself in that future state. So who's the cake here? This is, as most of you might recognize, this is Fight Club Brad Pitt. It's not just Brad Pitt, it's Fight Club Brad Pitt, right? At the peak of his physique. He has incorporated the solution, in this case, in our analogy, right? Training and physical fitness, but it hasn't changed his lifestyle. He doesn't live for this. Everything else is the same, but he has succeeded using your solution. That's very attractive, right, to your prospects that you may not have been engaging with, you may have been missing the mark with in your campaigns, but they are the right prospect, they're your ICP. And one of the key things that you get when you get the newlyweds, the folks that are just past their honeymoon period, right, in your adoption of your solution, whatever it is that you sell, is you'll get them to reflect on how their pain point was resolved in their words, which is far superior to yours. They'll give you real data. We used to spend this, now we only spend this. Plus, I don't even look at that. I look at it like once a week. I'm doing all these other things. And that messaging, right, that persona that you're projecting of this newer customer within 6 to 12 months of using your solution, that's very attractive to prospects because that's attainable. They can see themselves getting that benefit in what looks like not a very long time or a massive amount of change. Okay, let's go now to the fourth and final point here, and then we'll try to back up Sterling and take some questions. One tactic you really need to think about when you're focusing on your ideal customer profile, right? There's no doubt in this conversation, in this session I'm covering today, that the folks you're going after are the right people, right? We've already established that. They look right, they smell right, they sound right, and they're probably right. And if you are committed, if your role is around ABM, then you already know you're going after folks that you can't afford to lose, right? You're working hand in hand with sales to make it happen. One tactic you need to think a little differently about than what you might have been doing is events. And the reason for this is events are a different beast. In fact, even virtual events and what we're doing here, the audience at an event is already considering change. They're already unhappy. They're aware of the pain point. They may not know the cost of the status quo and why. They may not have the urgency to make the change, but they're all buyers. And from that perspective, you need to move beyond making the pitch in your event marketing. You need to make it personal. And I'll explain the examples we have here. Our event, our ROI from the last event we were at in Arizona for Lead to Pipeline, B2B MX, done by the Demand Gen Report team, was spectacular. I'm not talking percentage ROI, I'm talking magnitudes, right? 4x at least return on our investment from that event. And one of the things we had there was our session. Our speaker was our customer. She did a case study. But because we are data nerds, she went really deep into her conversion metrics, all the way from the tippy top of the funnel, all the way down to marketing contributed pipeline, sales qualified leads, all the way down to opportunities, right? To the extent that she could. They're a publicly traded company. And what we did is we created something called Marketing Acronym Bingo for her session, which is what you see there. This was a huge hit. People loved it, but more importantly, it positioned her session as people who already know the basics. You're coming into this to refine, to get better, and so you would know most of these acronyms, if not all of them. As you can imagine, at the end of that session, we were mobbed. The ROI, the lead gen from that session alone was phenomenal, not to mention the entire event. Now, that's the cake, okay? I'm gonna give that away. There's no gonzo on this slide. We also did something separate, which was instead of connecting attendees just with our sponsored session, we wanted a way to connect our attendees at this event with our salespeople. Okay, what was our sales enablement? That's the sticker you see on the right there in the middle of the slide. That's actually one of our employees' dogs, and she was there. And the idea we had at the booth is if you took this sticker, we'd give a $25 donation to the ASPCA, because since every sticker had pets from our own employees, you can tell we personally care about this. Now, this didn't qualify the people walking by our booth in any way. There's no mention or even idea around budget, but it made our salespeople incredibly personal, right? Time after time, I saw this. I was at the booth, I saw this. Time after time, they talked to somebody about making this donation on their behalf. They're super impressed because they're all marketers. Like, this is a great idea. They'd walk into the booth, and then after they mentioned which sticker they wanted, which pet they liked, and why it was important to them, they'd sort of look at us and go, "What do you do?" It was an open invitation to pitch. And you're asking a salesperson what they do at an event. The perfect setup for a top of funnel discussion, right into, well, what do you need, right? So that's what I wanted to call this out. Events are a special beast, especially this year and next year for all you B2B brands, because most people going to events, their great sort of fear is that they're going to end up alone. They're not going to meet the right people, and everybody's going to kind of be a gonzo. They're going to be a dud. They're not going to make any personal connections that make the trip worthwhile. These are two really simple things you can do. The bigger message is ultra personalize your event marketing, and you'll see that leads that have been dormant for a long time, opportunities you thought were lost permanently, are back on the table because that's why they went to the event to begin with. Okay, much like why all of you are here today, watching and engaging with us. All right, this is my recap, Sterling. I can stop sharing, and we're happy to take whatever questions we do have. I think I even got a question coming into this, so we could start there. It's entirely up to you, but I just wanted to recap really quickly, right? If you're looking to get your ICP leads back, you've got them in your database, right? And they're just gone dormant. These are things that you can do that apply to any size B2B company. It applies to really any type of solution. But you've got to acknowledge that you can have what you want. You can have it now, but you can't have both.
Awesome. So thank you so much. Some great points inside here. I love that you came up with there must be a need. That's my note that I took away. and then co-create content with AI. That's the both those are fantastic. There's a lot of other points as well, but those are the ones that we'll cover for now. We do have some questions that came in. So can you share data on how well this strategy has worked for companies with long sales cycles? That came from Jim over at.
Sure.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay. So let me just explain why the longer sales cycle might be relevant for this particular discussion. Just a second. A longer sales cycle means that the deal has to get personal. What I mean by that is that the approval and the adoption, or even the pilot, right, before you sign the contract, is going to go through a lot of decision makers that you will not have the ability to influence. Only your champion will be able to influence them. So you've got to be able to make the need to get out of the status quo. You've got to make it personal. You've got to invest in your champion, that this is something they absolutely need within a certain time frame to move their career forward. And if the company they're at doesn't want to do it, then they are actually thinking about other companies or other jobs where they could be able to do this. That's the kind of impetus, like the kind of urgency you need to drive. Okay. Now, clients that we've worked with that do this, lead to pipelines clients, I can't name them here. It's a public forum, right? And many of them are publicly traded companies, right? But they have very complex technical solutions. You might remember some of the brands I covered, right? They are the number one or number two or number three in their industry on a global level, and their solution is very complex. So the kind of results that they're seeing, for those that have implemented some of the things we're talking about, they're seeing not a percentage lift, but a magnitude lift. And I just want to put this in context. These are multi-billion-dollar companies. Their average sales cycle is 6 to 12 or 18 months. And they're seeing a 3x lift in conversion. It doesn't take a genius for you guys to do the math. That's a massive amount of pipeline being generated by doing what is really just sort of simple tactics based on what your buyer really needs. So that would be the first metric I throw out there. So the only other one I'll mention is a hyper-competitive industry that one of our clients is in. Their campaigns are focused on the middle and the bottom of the funnel, and they've seen a 2x increase in speed of conversion. So this is different from a longer sales cycle. These are people who could have a shorter sales cycle, but by doing some of these things, they've moved twice as fast in the programs that we Lead to Pipeline have run for them to get to sales.
Wow, that's awesome. Great answer with that, by the way. So we still have a few more minutes. I want to go through a couple more questions here.
Sure.
I have Tammy Long, who is asking, excuse me. This one's a technical question, so I like this. To clarify, are you suggesting we provide fewer leads to sales? Because that sounds like a quick way to get fired right now.
Yeah, so I mean, okay, I get it. Cake is better than ice cream. If you have to feed ice cream, it's not sustainable. It doesn't last very long, and you're gonna get sick really quick doing this, right? But my point with this is, if you have to use ice cream to buy yourself time, to ground yourself, to get your team, your budget, your focus together, but the only way out of this, the only way to succeed from a demand gen perspective is cake. You have got to focus on better quality of leads. And here's why, guys, right? A lot of senior marketers, my friends, are having very difficult conversations with their leadership, who are being asked, why do I even need this? Why can't I just spend my money and get marketing from elsewhere, right? That argument is going to intensify over the next 6 months, right? With other geopolitical and economic changes, is what's the ROI of my marketing? You can't win that argument by doing more of less effective work. You can only win that argument by demonstrating that you can deliver better leads, that'll deliver a better sales experience. Even if they don't win the deal, the sales team is over the moon that they got that opportunity, right? And then you've got the basis to say, I could do more. I could add ice cream to my cake if I had more budget.
Okay, yeah. That's a rough question. Nicely done. Our last question here, and we've got about 3 minutes or so. So
Sure.
again, thank you, Sourabh, for coming in and talking about these topics. Is a fantastic way to look at this. I loved your 4 points. They're fantastic. The last question, it comes from Christy Carroll, and it says, we have a very small marketing team. How can we produce the relevant content without a large budget?
Okay. So I think it's very important, right, to change the way you think about content. And I'm going to give you 2 very simple examples. I don't have slides for this, but I hope I can explain this in about 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Instead of asking your VP of marketing, or if you're a very small company, the head of marketing, right, or the CEO, what they think the next prioritized content should be, don't ask them. Go straight to your sales team and ask your sales team, what are you using to get meetings? What do you say? What does the prospect say back? What questions do they ask before they turn into a meeting? Now, you might be surprised. Wait, that's SDR work. Yes. If you're a small team, find where the SDR success is. What qualifies a prospect to be open to a sales conversation, a demo, or a pilot? And then from there, focus entirely on that. Find the content that would identify such individuals, right? That's how I would tell you to cut about 80% of the content you may be working on out, because it won't deliver demand gen results, not quantifiably, to your sales team. Go to sales, work backwards from what the sales do before they get a meeting, and then bring these things, a survey, a webinar, whatever it is, back to your leadership. Hey, if we were to do this, everyone coming through here, sales would want to talk to. Can we start with that? And of course, I have to say, Sterling, this is what we do. If you need help with that, I'm on LinkedIn. Ask, just reach out. I'll tell you what you could do with very little budget or no budget if you have to do it yourself.
Yeah, very, very, very true. And I love the fact that you gave us a little shout out there to reach out to you personally. I love that. Thank you so much. You may get hit up from some people, so that's appreciated. Well, hey, Sourabh, thank you so much for your time today, and we really appreciate your topic and moving forward with things for that. So, with I just another little shout out, demand gen strategy to engage with your ICP at that time, right? That's the important time when they want to engage.